muted. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. There we go.
What's up, everybody? This is Chad Minton, your host of Catfish on Ice, episode 133. Welcome in, everyone. We have got a really awesome guest joining us to get us all caught up on Nashville SC soccer. So it's not Catfish on Ice anymore. It is now Catfish on Grass, officially. Tim Sullivan of Club and Country follows Nashville SC. Welcome in, Tim. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, we're really thrilled to have you. We've got so many Nashville Predators fans who are also diehard Nashville SC fans. And, of course, we're in the dead of the offseason right now for the Nashville Predators, unfortunately. So what better time than to get caught up on some Nashville SC soccer as they are right in the thick of things in their season. So, first of all, kind of tell us, Tim, how did you get into covering Nashville SC? Club and Country is an awesome account that I love following, at Club Country USA on Twitter. Go follow them. Yeah, Tim, kind of tell us how you got into covering Nashville SC.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird roundabout situation. I'm a journalist by trade. I covered the University of Michigan on the Rivals Network and currently cover Virginia Tech on the Rivals Network. And I've always loved the U.S. men's national team and never really had an interest in like a Major League Soccer team or like an English Premier League team, although I've since somewhat become a West Ham fan. But I started writing after the U.S. missed the World Cup in 2018. It's basically what I've always done is kind of, if I'm really interested in a sport, I just start writing about it. And then, of course, within a matter of weeks, it was announced that the USL team that was set to start just a few months later was going to be in MLS within a couple of years. And I figured this is what I do professionally. Nobody is writing about this soccer team right now. If I buckle down now, I can really kind of help people learn about it because, there are a lot of knowledgeable soccer fans in Nashville, but there are also a lot of people who are interested but don't know a ton about it. And that's kind of what I've always done, try to help people understand a little bit about both the big picture and the day-to-day of Nashville SC is what I've been doing for, 5-6 years now, 4 or 5 years now.
Wow. Well, that's the field I'm in. You're right up my alley for me because I'm very much a beginner soccer fan. I'm all about the other four major sports, but soccer is the one that I'm trying to gain knowledge in. And so having you on today is going to help me out a lot, I'm sure. All right, let's start talking about Nashville SC this year. I know that they are a very quality team. They're in the playoff picture. They've got a lot of really good players like Hani Mukhtar is the one everyone knows about, even if you're a really casual fan. But, kind of tell us really like some players that stick out on this team, some players that you should know about that really carry this team and help them get a lot of the success they've enjoyed this year.
Yeah, you mentioned Hani Mukhtar, and the conversation always has to start with him. He was the runner-up for the league MVP award last year, so he's been recognized already as one of the top players in the league. He was on the league's best 11, which is, kind of the team of the year sort of thing. And he was joined on that best 11 by Walker Zimmerman, the U.S. men's national team defender. A lot of people probably know him, even if they only know a little bit about Nashville SC. He was the defender of the year. He is now the back-to-back defender of the year after last year's award. Both years that he's been in Nashville, he has won that award, and he's projecting pretty well to at least be right in the mix for it this year as well. Those are really the two guys, kind of the attacker and the defender, that are going to get the headlines on each end of the field. But when you look at the guys who helped Mukhtar in the attack, unfortunately, one of them has been out for 6 weeks or so now. Randall Leal, a Costa Rica international. He suffered an ankle injury in a game against Real Salt Lake several weeks back. So he's getting close to coming back, but I would say that the attack has really struggled without him. He is an important piece to this attack. CJ Sapong, a guy who had a cup of coffee with the U.S. men's national team as well, is banging in goals. He's a guy who really benefits from Mukhtar's ability to create. Yeah, he's also a really good dude. They're a team not just of talented players, but of really good dudes. And CJ is probably one of the guys who's right up there for sure. And then I think another one that people probably really focus on is Dax McCarty. He was another guy who's had a cup of coffee with the U.S. men's national team. He had a bit more than a cup of coffee. I think he probably has like 30 caps, which are what international appearances are called. Don't ask me why. I don't know the answer. That's just what they call them. But he's a guy that is kind of one of the the guys who's going to go down as an MLS legend, never, went overseas to play somewhere else, has played with 4 or 5 MLS teams and done very well with all of them. He's been Nashville's captain all 3 years so far, although he is kind of seeing a reduced role this year. He's almost my age. So he's real up there in soccer years. So I think those are the guys that when Nashville SC fans think, who are the people who make this team, it's probably those 4. And I would throw in Joe Willis, or 5, I guess. I would throw in Joe Willis, the goalkeeper, as the 6th one. He's having an okay year so far, but he has been he has a pleasant mustache, and people really like that. They really think it's funny that he has a mustache. So he's kind of become a meme for that too. Yeah.
Well, we know the Preds do the same thing. The Preds did the whole mustache thing. Philip Forsberg, of course, is got the epic mustache for the Predators. So it's kind of funny to see Nashville SC doing the same thing, rocking the mustaches. The thing I kind of noticed, or I seem to have understood about Nashville SC, is they are very much, at least last year, their first year in the MLS, they were pretty much a defensive team, correct? Like they weren't like one of those teams that's like high flying offensive attack. Is that still the case now, or how would you describe this team's style, and where they really, make their hay and have success?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair description. They're a little bit kind of leaning more towards the attack nowadays, but a lot of what they're able to do offensively is be very sound defensively, and then get the ball to Hani Mukhtar and let him cook. And that's what he does. And he does it very well. There's a reason that he was number 2 in the MVP voting last year, but it really is, I guess it's based around first being very strong defensively, and then letting, your 2 or 3 really talented attacking players, get up the pitch, often kind of on the counter attack, the odd man rush type of thing for the hockey fans out there. But
yeah,
it is a sort of thing where Nashville is sending 3 guys forward in attack in those situations. A lot of times there are teams out there. LAFC is one that has historically had a reputation. They'll kind of methodically work the ball down the field and have, 8 guys in the opposing box if they can to kind of work their way towards a goal. So Nashville is very much not one of those teams. They are a team that's a little bit smash and grab at times.
All right. Well, I can roll with that. I saw a really crazy stat. I did not realize this. So Nashville SC is unbeaten at home over the last 25 matches, including regular season and other tournament play and stuff. That is just like a mind-boggling statistic for me there. 22 straight in the regular season, and I read 6th longest in MLS history.
And they're 8 wins and draws. I guess it would be 8 non-losses away from tying the record, which is has stood for 9 years now. Is set by the Houston Dynamo in 2013. So Geodis Park has been a fortress. Nissan Stadium was a fortress. They didn't lose at Nissan last year. They didn't lose towards the end of the season in their inaugural year either. So this has been a club that's really, I guess, given the home fans something to cheer for, which is obviously a very good idea.
So I was very fortunate to get my first taste of Nashville SC soccer when they opened up in Nissan Stadium against Atlanta FC. Like, I think that would have been February of 2020.
Yep.
Or
February 29th. It's easy to remember because it was February 29th, which we don't get all the time.
I got to go to that game. I got to go to that game with a really good buddy of mine who is like, soccer's his number 1 sport. So he was schooling me the entire time, telling me what was going on and stuff. But I just remember how exciting the fans were, how crazy that atmosphere was. But let's go ahead. So since we're talking about the unbeaten streak at home and all that, now they're in Geodis Park. I have not been able to make it to a game yet, but it's like at the top of my list. I got to get there. Tell us what makes Geodis Park so special. I know they've been there for about a month now. Just tell us what makes that place so special. I know it's loud, the way it's built, the structure itself.
Yeah, I think the structure is a really important piece of it. I think more than a lot of stadiums in the league, the fans are really close to the field. The front row is basically at field level, and they're only probably whatever the FIFA minimum is, like 5 to 8 yards back. It's really close, and then it's built pretty vertically. You hear about that with, I think, especially college football stadiums. Vertical keeps in the sound, and then they have those canopies over the top too, which fortunately for the fans who are on the I guess it would be the east side of the stadium, it keeps out a little bit of the sun, but not a ton of it. But that helps keep the sound in as well. And I think the thing that really kind of ties it together for me is thinking back to the opening match, which was on May 1st against Philadelphia Union. That first goal that was scored in Geodis Park for Nashville SC, it was unfortunately only to rescue a 1-1 draw, but the crowd pop was just insane. And you can see that was the sort of thing that these fans had been waiting for. These fans kind of felt like they had earned over the course of what they have done in 3 years in Major League Soccer. And I think that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just such a gorgeous park. I mean, a gorgeous stadium. I've seen images. I've heard from a lot of friends who have been there. Mm-hmm. They did such a great job building that place. And it's, 30,000 seems like a low capacity because we're so college football driven around here. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people are, Tennessee Vols fans. So they're like, what? That's not even a third of the size of Neyland Stadium or something. But like you just said, the way it's built and how close you are to the action, mm-hmm. that is just, you can't replicate that. That's just so cool. So I really got to get there soon.
Yeah, well, and I would say compared to a college football setting where Neyland Stadium's obviously huge. I'm a Michigan grad, so I have to comment that Michigan Stadium is bigger. Yeah. But this is the biggest soccer specific stadium in the United States. So 30,000 might not seem like a lot from a college football perspective. From a soccer perspective, it is huge.
It's huge. Yeah, exactly. All right, so I want to kind of talk about the standings, I guess, right now, and kind of where do you put Nashville SC in the pecking order among some of the great MLS teams this year? I saw that they're sixth place and they're tied for sixth, I believe, in their conference right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
All right,
so they're right near the kind of the playoff cut line. I honestly
they're hanging around.
They were tied for sixth at the end of their game the other night, so that would be as much as I
tied
remember.
I wrote it down here. Tied for this. I tried to do my research here, Tim. I tried to do my homework, so I didn't sound like a complete idiot.
Little did you know your guest would sound like a complete imbecile.
No, it's all good. So yeah, they're tied for sixth place in the West with 23 points, 6 wins, 4 losses, and 5 draws in their last few games here. So that's pretty good. But where do you kind of put them as far as the pecking order? Do you think they're better than last year as far as what they can maybe do in the playoffs? I know they went pretty far in the playoffs last year. They did pretty well. Do you think they can replicate that this year? Or do you think maybe they took a step back? I don't know. I'm interested to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I think they're probably in the same place. What's interesting is playing in the Western Conference this year after being in the East last year, just because of MLS expansion, because of kind of the weirdness of the pandemic. They've bounced back and forth between the conferences. So it's been tough to say what is a product of being in the East versus a product of changing conferences versus how good the team is. I think they're a better team than last year. I don't know if they'll have, necessarily quite as good of results as they had last year. They finished tied for second in the East last year, lost a tiebreaker. And then the team that they lost that tiebreaker to was Philadelphia Union. So they had to travel to Philadelphia Union in the third round of the playoffs, and Union were able to beat them. And that's a game that I think a lot of people felt that Nashville would have wanted if it had been at home for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
We just talked about a long unbeaten streak at home, regardless of whether it's Nissan or Geodis. But I think the team is better. I don't know if they'll be quite as high in the standings at the end of the year, but I do think they're probably built to go deep in the playoffs. They have kind of that style, like I mentioned, that they're not going to get beaten a lot. And while you can't tie in the playoffs, I think not getting beaten is pretty important. If you draw, you go to extra time, you go to penalties, and you kind of live with the luck of the draw. But I think a team that isn't going to lose games necessarily is built to go deep in the playoffs. And they've shown that they have that ability to score in a way that they haven't been able to the previous couple of years either. And that could really take them to the next level.
For sure. Yeah. How are they about halfway through the season right now, or past the halfway point? How far
so they're almost to the halfway point. It's a 34 game season and they've played 15 games. So they're just short of halfway.
And I noticed they've only had 5 home games and 10 away games. So eventually that'll balance itself out, correct?
Yeah. So because Geodis Park was scheduled for a May 1st opening, they had to play their first 8 games away. So they're really making up ground. And a lot of other teams have obviously played basically half of their games home and away, or a few have played a lot more games at home than they have away. So MLS has the greatest home field advantage of any league in the world, I believe, in pretty much any sport. Certainly it's the biggest of the we'll say 5 major US sports for shorthand, but definitely of any soccer league in the world that has the greatest home field advantage. So they're really hoping that once they do kind of level out that schedule, they're going to make up some of these points and climb up the standings because they're playing more games at home.
Well, and soccer is just so wildly popular in this city, and I've just loved how the city has embraced it. I love
Mm-hmm.
new fans like myself who are getting on board. We're like, this is just so much fun. And so with the Predators in the offseason, the Titans aren't playing right now. There's no college football. Now's the time to really jump on the bandwagon per se and support this team. And so that's why we've been joined by Tim Sullivan of Club and Country, covers Nashville SC. He's your go-to to be following right now if you're interested in Nashville SC and you want to do that. And then you also cover, I saw HokeyHaven.com, Virginia
That's
Tech,
right.
correct?
Yep.
Very cool. Another loud home stadium, by the way, I might add it.
Yeah. I've actually only been there a few times since I obviously do not live there, but it's a pretty cool environment there for sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. Last thing I got here for you. Again, this has been Tim Sullivan of Club and Country that covers Nashville SC. At Club Country USA is where you can follow on Twitter. So go do that. All right. So I was kind of looking up this whole, the Supporters Shield.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to the best team, right? That gets the most points.
So it's the best regular season. Yep.
So it'd be like the equivalent to the President's Trophy in hockey.
Yeah, I was gonna try and name it in hockey, but I couldn't remember it. So
it's all good.
It's
all good. But also kind of explain to me how it works as far as like you can qualify for different tournaments if you finish so high in the standings. I remember seeing stuff about that last year as well with Nashville SC.
Yeah, so kind of the nature of soccer is that there are a bunch of tournaments that aren't just the regular season. So if you finish, either you win your conference, you win, obviously, MLS Cup, which is the end of the playoffs. It would be equivalent to the Stanley Cup. You get qualified for the CONCACAF Champions League, in which the best teams from MLS play against the best teams from the Mexican League, all the Central American leagues. Each country essentially has their own league, and the best really teams or the best club teams qualify for that tournament. The format is always changing, but for the most part, the final ends up being the best MLS team remaining in the bracket versus the best Mexican team and at the end of the bracket. And the MLS teams have not historically done very well. The first one to win it in its current format was this year. Seattle Sounders were able to knock off Pumas from Mexico, and that was the first time that MLS had won it since, I think, 2009. First time in this format. So
wow,
that's obviously a big deal, and hoping that Nashville does well enough to qualify for that tournament next year. That would be awesome to do away games in Mexico City or wherever it is.
Yes.
The other prominent competition that's going on. There's always like other stuff that starts up and happens for like a couple years and then just disappears. You never hear from it again. But one that definitely does not fit into that category is the U.S. Open Cup, and that includes every team essentially in the United States. Amateur teams can qualify for it. There are local qualifiers, and every MLS team participates in it. Every USL team, which is the league that Nashville was in before moving up to MLS, participates in it. It's a bracket. The MLS teams join it kind of later on. So Nashville has only had 2 games in the U.S. Open Cup, but a team that's a local qualifier, they're all eliminated by now. They would have played 14 games to get to this level in the bracket. Nashville beat Atlanta United already, and they beat Louisville City, who was their old rival from USL. They will play June 29th in Orlando, and I believe that is the quarterfinal, if I recall correctly. So they're 3 games away from a trophy in the U.S. Open Cup. It is technically the national championship of our country. It's been happening for 120 years or something. It's one of the oldest trophies that exists in soccer. Just hasn't been very prominent because American teams have not historically been very good. That would be the other big one to take a look at. So I think, we talk about the quadruple or it's the treble in England, which is the FA Cup, the English League Cup, and the Premier League. But in the United States, it would be the U.S. Open Cup, Supporters Shield in MLS Cup, which is the playoff champion, the actual champion of the league, and then making it to and hopefully winning CONCACAF Champions League would be some of the big ones that you really look at and say those are the prominent tournaments that we really want to go and win.
That's where I got to brush up a lot of my knowledge. Okay,
it's something that I know it really well, but it's always.
I got to get to update on all these tournaments and all these trophies, but I find it so cool though, and so it's just interesting. It's fascinating to see all these different tournaments. It's unlike any other major sport as far as all these different trophies and all these different tournaments and leagues you can qualify for. And it's really cool. So this has been a lot of fun, Tim. Thank you so much. We've been joined by Tim Sullivan of Club and Country here on Catfish on Ice, or Catfish on Grass here for this segment. We're really trying to do some light Nashville SC coverage. And so you're welcome back anytime, Tim, to do a segment with us and get us caught up. Maybe later on in this season, when we get closer to the playoffs, maybe we can bring you on again. We would love that and be honored if you could do that.
Absolutely. I'd be honored to be back on.
Thank you so much, Tim. All right, this has been episode 133 of Catfish on Ice with your host, Chad Minton. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We will see you later this week.